The warning light blinked red across every screen in the communication center, and nobody knew what to do about it. Patricia Hayes pushed past the technicians crowding around the main console, her boots clicking against the metal floor. She had been in the middle of dinner when the emergency call came through. Now she stared at the alien transmission that had every analyst in the building confused and frightened. The message played again. Strange sounds filled the room, musical and desperate at the same time. The computer had spent 3 hours translating it, and the words made Patricia's stomach twist. 7 different alien species were calling for help. Something called the Swarm had already destroyed 40 of their worlds. Billions were dead. More would die soon. Samira Okoye stood beside her, reading the data streams with wide eyes. The xenobiology expert had been studying alien life for 12 years, but this was the first time any of them had received a real message from space. Her hands shook as she pointed to the timeline on the screen. 3 months, Samira said quietly. They lost 40 civilizations in 3 months. Whatever this swarm is, it adapts to everything they throw at it. Energy weapons stop working after the first battle. Their shields become useless. Even their artificial intelligence systems get corrupted and turned against them. Patricia read the technical specifications scrolling past. These aliens had technology that made human science look like children playing with blocks. They could fold space, manipulate gravity, and create energy from nothing. Yet something was eating through their defenses like they were made of paper. Roy Sullivan arrived next, still in his training gear from the combat simulators. The Marine Corps officer looked exactly like his nickname suggested. Broad, tough, and ready for a fight. He scanned the transmission data without saying anything for a long moment. "They don't want us to come," Roy said finally, pointing at a section of the message. "Says right here, Earth is classified as a Class 12 lethal world. Humans are considered too unstable for galactic contact. They're warning us to stay away." Yuki Tanaka walked into the room carrying a tablet full of analysis reports. The tactical officer had been running simulations since the message first arrived. She set the tablet down and brought up a star map showing the affected regions of space. Red zones spread across the display like blood in water. "If we do nothing, they'll all die," Yuki said simply. "The swarm is moving toward their core worlds. Once those fall, there won't be anyone left to stop it. And eventually it'll reach us too." Patricia looked around the room at the faces watching her. Earth had only been traveling between stars for 30 years. Humanity was still figuring out how to survive in space. They had no relationship with these aliens, no treaty, no obligation. The message made it clear that humans were considered dangerous outsiders. Probationary species, the translation called them. Not ready for the galaxy, but the math was simple. If the swarm kept spreading, Earth would be next. Maybe in a year, maybe in 10. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations couldn't stop it. What chance would humanity have alone? "Show me everything we know about Earth's classification," Patricia ordered. Samira pulled up another file. Patricia read through the alien analysis of her homeworld and felt something strange. Pride mixed with understanding. Earth was rated lethal because everything about it was extreme. The gravity crushed most alien species. The weather swung between deadly heat and killing cold. The atmosphere contained oxygen at levels toxic to most life forms. Diseases, predators, poisonous plants, and natural disasters made the planet a nightmare by galactic standards. Humans evolved to survive all of it. They were stronger, faster healing, and more aggressive than the peaceful aliens who built the Galactic Assembly. Earth's history was soaked in blood from millions of years of everything trying to kill everything else. Humans learned to be better at violence than anything else on their world. "They think we're monsters," Roy said, reading over her shoulder. "Too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous." "Maybe that's exactly what they need right now," Patricia replied. She thought about the 40 dead worlds, billions of lives gone, children, families, entire cultures erased by something these advanced aliens couldn't fight. They had achieved peace among themselves. They had eliminated war, poverty, and suffering. They built paradise among the stars, and now paradise was burning. Patricia made her decision. She sent the commands before anyone could argue. Within an hour, the order went out to every military base on Earth. "Prepare for deployment. Gather volunteers. Load the ships." The response was immediate. 47 warships began preparation sequences. Thousands of soldiers, scientists, and support personnel volunteered within minutes. Humanity had been waiting decades to prove they belonged in the galaxy. This wasn't how anyone expected it to happen. Roy gathered his best Marines. Samira assembled a research team to study the swarm. Yuki began planning tactical approaches based on the limited data they had. Engineers loaded weapons and supplies that seemed primitive compared to alien technology. Bullets and bombs and blades alongside laser guidance systems and fusion reactors. The ESS Relentless prepared to launch, carrying humanity's answer to the galactic distress call. Patricia stood in the observation deck watching Earth rotate below. Somewhere up there in the dark between stars, peaceful aliens were dying because they had forgotten how to fight. She wondered if they would accept help from the violent species they feared. The navigation system calculated the jump coordinates. Engines hummed to life. Within hours, humanity would enter a war they didn't start, fighting for people who didn't want them there. Patricia smiled grimly. That was the most human thing she could imagine. Space twisted wrong during the slip jump and half the crew got sick. Roy Sullivan helped 3 Marines to the medical bay before heading back to his station. Traveling faster than light felt like being turned inside out and put back together slightly wrong. The human ships were built tough but crude compared to the alien technology they were about to encounter. The communication console lit up with an incoming message. Everyone fell silent as the first real alien voice spoke to them. The translator struggled for a moment, then cleared. Human vessel, this is Ambassador Reith of the Tilani delegation. We received your launch notification. Please understand that your presence here violates assembly protocols. Your species lacks proper clearance for this region of space. Yuki patched the message through to the main screen. The face that appeared looked like a bird mixed with a person. Delicate features, large eyes, and feathers that shifted colors with emotion. Reith's feathers were currently showing patterns that the computer identified as distress and confusion. Ambassador Reith, this is Commander Patricia Hayes of Earth Defense. We're responding to your distress call. Our intent is to provide military assistance against the swarm threat. The alien's feathers rippled through several color patterns. Commander, you misunderstand. The distress call was a warning to all species in nearby space to evacuate. It was not a request for military aid, especially not from a Class 12 species. Your world is classified as extremely dangerous. Your people are considered highly volatile by assembly standards. Patricia kept her voice calm. Ambassador, we understand your concern, but our analysis shows the swarm will reach Earth eventually. We're not here because we're heroes. We're here because we're next. Another face appeared on screen beside Reith. This one was reptilian, with scales that gleamed like polished metal and eyes that had seen too much death recently. Admiral Koss of the Dren species looked like something from Earth's prehistoric past, but moved with the careful dignity of someone carrying enormous responsibility. Let me be direct, humans, Koss said, his voice rough. We have lost 40 worlds in 3 months. Every military engagement has ended in failure. The swarm learns from each battle. Our energy weapons became useless after the first week. Our shields no longer function. Our drones turn against us. We are not asking for help because there is no help to give. We are dying, and we do not wish to take you with us. Roy stepped forward. Admiral, with respect, what's your casualty rate on extraction operations? Koss's eyes narrowed. 78%. We have 3,000 civilians trapped on Haven 7. We have been trying to extract them for 2 weeks. Every attempt fails. The swarm adapts to our tactics within hours. Let us try, Roy said simply. Reith's feathers flashed red. This is insanity. You have no idea what you are facing. The swarm is not like anything in your experience. It learns, it adapts, it consumes. You will die, and we will have your deaths on our conscience. Samira brought up the data they had analyzed during the journey. Ambassador, we've studied the information you transmitted. The swarm is designed to counter advanced civilizations. It expects certain types of warfare. Energy weapons, shield technology, artificial intelligence, drone tactics. We don't fight that way. What do you mean? Koss asked. Roy pulled up Earth's military specifications. The aliens stared at the data in confused silence. Human weapons threw pieces of metal using controlled explosions. Human soldiers carried chemical accelerants that created fire. Human tactics relied on close combat, unpredictable movement, and something the translator struggled to convey. The word came through as controlled fury. This is primitive, Reith said quietly. You still use kinetic projectiles. You still employ combustion reactions. Your combat doctrine includes hand-to-hand fighting. This cannot work against the swarm. Has the swarm ever fought anyone who uses these methods? Yuki asked. The silence that followed was answer enough. Admiral Koss finally spoke. We will allow you to attempt the extraction on Haven 7, but I am telling you now you will fail. The swarm has never failed to destroy every force sent against it. I do not want to watch another species die, but you seem determined to learn this lesson yourself. Patricia nodded. We accept those terms. Transmit the coordinates and tactical data. We'll deploy within 6 hours. The transmission ended. Roy gathered his strike team while Samira prepared analysis equipment. The crew worked with focused efficiency, loading weapons that looked ancient compared to the alien technology they'd seen in the database. Rifles that fired bullets, explosives that relied on chemical reactions, knives and axes for close combat. Dana cross-checked her engineering equipment, mostly analog tools with no computer components that the swarm could corrupt. She had packed thermite charges, mechanical timers, and old-fashioned wire cutters, the kinds of tools her grandfather might have used 100 years ago. The ESS Relentless moved toward Haven 7, and the Coalition fleet maintained a careful distance. Patricia watched the alien ships on her display, beautiful, elegant vessels that looked like works of art compared to the blocky, armored human warships. The aliens had built their civilization on peace and cooperation. They had eliminated war among themselves thousands of years ago, and now they were paying the price for forgetting how to fight. Yuki brought up the tactical display of Haven 7. The planet was similar to Earth in size but with lighter gravity and calmer weather. The swarm had surrounded the biodome containing the trapped civilians. Coalition forces had tried everything: orbital bombardment, drone strikes, commando raids. Nothing worked. The swarm adapted to every tactic within hours. Roy studied the defense patterns and started to smile. They're fighting like civilized species. Predictable formations, logical tactics, rules of engagement. The swarm expects that, Patricia agreed. It was designed to fight advanced civilizations, beings who wage war with equations and efficiency. Good thing we're not that civilized, Dana said, checking her explosives one more time. The strike team prepared for deployment. They would drop from orbit in armored pods, a technique so dangerous that most Coalition species considered it suicidal. Human soldiers had been doing it for 50 years. The pods would burn through the atmosphere like meteors, crash into the ground at terminal velocity, and the Marines inside would walk out ready to fight. Ambassador Reith sent one final message before they launched. I hope you survive, humans, not because we need your help, but because the galaxy would be dimmer without you in it. Even if you are terrifying, Roy laughed as he sealed his pod. Tell them we appreciate the sentiment, and tell them to watch how Deathworlders solve problems. The pods launched. 48 armored meteors screamed toward Haven 7's surface. Inside, Roy Sullivan and his Marines readied their primitive weapons and prepared to teach the galaxy that sometimes the old ways worked best. The pod hit the ground like a bomb, and Roy felt every bone in his body compress from the impact. Earth's gravity trained humans for exactly this kind of punishment. He popped the release hatch and rolled out with his rifle ready. Around him, 47 other pods crashed into Haven 7's surface, each one leaving a crater in the soft alien soil. The swarm reacted immediately. Creatures made of metal and corrupted organic matter swarmed toward the landing site. They moved wrong, twitching and jerking like broken machines trying to imitate life. The Coalition had sent images, but seeing them in person made Roy's skin crawl. These things learned from everything they consumed: technology, biology, tactics. They were designed to be the perfect weapon against advanced civilizations. Too bad humans weren't that advanced. Roy raised his rifle and fired. The bullets punched through the nearest swarm creature's shielding like it wasn't there. The thing collapsed, sparking and leaking fluids. Around him, Marines opened fire with weapons that the Coalition considered primitive. Simple kinetic force, metal projectiles moving fast enough to destroy anything in their path. The swarm's adaptive shields had no idea what to do with bullets. They were designed to counter energy weapons, plasma streams, and particle beams. Solid chunks of metal traveling at supersonic speeds weren't in their programming. The creatures fell by the dozens. Dana Cross sprinted toward the biodome's outer wall with a backpack full of thermite charges. The Coalition had tried to breach these walls with precision-cutting lasers. The swarm learned to reinforce the areas being cut faster than the lasers could work. Dana's solution was older than space travel. She planted explosives that burned hot enough to melt steel and stepped back. The charges detonated with a roar that shook the ground. Chemical fire ate through the wall in seconds. No computers to hack, no technology to corrupt, just simple chemistry doing what it had done for thousands of years. "Breach," Dana shouted. "Marines, move in." The strike team poured through the opening. Inside the biodome, 3,000 alien civilians huddled in the center. They were small, fragile-looking beings from half a dozen species. When they saw the humans in their armored suits carrying primitive weapons, several of them made sounds of fear. Yuki's voice crackled over the radio from orbit. "Coalition fleet reports swarm reinforcements incoming. You have maybe 10 minutes before they overwhelm your position." Roy assessed the situation. 3,000 civilians, most of them injured or weak. The biodome was surrounded by swarm forces. Coalition ships couldn't get close enough for a pickup without being destroyed. The original plan called for evacuating in waves, but there wasn't time. "Change of plans," Roy announced. "We're going to run straight through them." One of the aliens, a Tylani with blue feathers, approached him carefully. She was one of the Coalition military observers who had been trapped here. "That is suicide. The swarm will adapt to your weapons within minutes. They always do. Then we won't use the same weapons," Roy said with a grim smile. He switched channels. "All units switch to close combat protocols. I want knives, axes, and hand-to-hand when they get close. Don't give them time to adapt." The Marine beside him laughed. "About time. I was getting bored shooting." They formed up around the civilians. Humans on the outside, aliens protected in the center. Dana rigged mechanical timers to detonate thermite charges at irregular intervals. No pattern for the swarm to learn, just chaos and fire at random moments. The formation moved. The swarm attacked from all sides, and Roy's plan became clear. The Marines fought with different weapons every few seconds. Bullets, then blades, then explosive charges, then back to bullets of a different caliber. Fire, acid, blunt force, piercing strikes. There was no pattern, no logic, no way for the swarm to predict what would happen next. A swarm creature broke through the perimeter. It moved toward a group of civilians, its corrupted limbs reaching out. Roy dove between them and grabbed the thing with his bare hands. His armor's strength servos whined, but human muscle did the real work. He twisted, and the creature came apart with a screech of tearing metal. The Tylani observer stared in horror. "You fought it with your hands. Without weapons? How are you strong enough?" Roy pointed at the ground beneath their feet. "This world has what, 60% of Earth's gravity? You people evolved on paradise worlds. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. This?" He gestured at the battle around them. "This is a light workout." Dana's explosives created a path through the swarm lines. Marines carried injured aliens, creatures that weighed almost nothing by human standards. One Marine had 3 adult Tylani draped over his armor. Another carried a wounded Dren that would have been too heavy for any Coalition soldier to lift. The swarm adapted to their rifles. The Marines switched to shotguns. When the swarm adapted to those, they used grenades. When the swarm learned to predict explosive patterns, the Marines started throwing rocks hard enough to crack the creature's shells. "You are insane," the Tylani observer whispered, watching a human soldier beat a swarm creature to death with an entrenching tool. "Probably," Roy agreed, "but we're alive." They reached the extraction point, an open field where Coalition dropships could land. Yuki had coordinated with Admiral Koss to time the pickup perfectly. The ships descended through swarm fire, their shields barely holding. Humans loaded civilians onto the ships with speed born from decades of evacuation drills. Injured aliens went first, then the elderly, then everyone else. The Marines held the perimeter, switching weapons and tactics every few seconds to keep the swarm confused. A swarm creature larger than the others emerged from the tree line. It had adapted multiple times, incorporating technology and biology from everything it had consumed. Energy weapons sprouted from its limbs. Organic armor plated its body. It moved with purpose toward the dropships. Dana saw it and made a decision. She grabbed every thermite charge she had left and sprinted toward the creature. Roy shouted after her, but she was already moving. The swarm creature's weapons powered up, targeting her. She dove under its legs and planted the charges directly on its underside, the one spot its adaptive armor couldn't protect. The mechanical timer clicked. Dana rolled away as the creature turned to face her. The thermite ignited. The creature screamed, a sound like tearing metal and dying animals mixed together. It collapsed in a pool of melted technology and burning biology. Dana walked back to the perimeter, smoking slightly. "I really hate those things. The last civilians boarded the ships. Roy did a head count. 3,000 aliens saved, 0 human casualties. The Coalition fleet was silent on the communications channel. They had been trying this rescue for 2 weeks with a 78% casualty rate. Humans did it in 40 minutes without losing anyone. Admiral Koss's voice finally came through. Human forces, this is Coalition Command. We are at a loss for words. You succeeded. How did you succeed? Roy looked at his Marines, dirty, tired, several of them injured but still standing. He looked at the destroyed swarm creatures scattered across the battlefield. He thought about Earth and everything that made humans what they were. Admiral, we come from a world where everything evolved to kill everything else. Predators that hunted in packs. Diseases that adapted to our immune systems. Weather that could freeze or burn us. Other humans who fought wars for thousands of years. We learned to survive all of it. We learned to be better at violence than anything else on our planet. He paused, watching the dropships lift off with their rescued civilians. You built a peaceful civilization. That's beautiful. That's something humans are still trying to achieve. But peace is a luxury. Right now you need people who remember how to fight dirty, how to adapt faster than our enemies, how to win at any cost. Roy sealed his helmet and prepared for extraction. You need Deathworlders, Admiral. Lucky for you, we just arrived. Samira Okoye had been awake for 36 hours straight, and she was starting to see patterns that didn't make sense. The captured swarm samples sat in containment fields aboard the Coalition science vessel, Harmony's Light. She studied them alongside Professor Lin, a crystalline being whose species thought in mathematical equations the way humans thought in words. This is wrong, Samira muttered, staring at the molecular analysis. The swarm's structure is too perfect, too specifically designed. Lin's crystalline body chimed softly, the sound translating to agreement. I have been thinking the same. Natural evolution does not create such focused, adaptive capabilities. This is engineered. They worked through the night or what passed for night on a ship without day cycles. The other Coalition scientists had given up trying to find the swarm's weakness. But Samira had spent her whole career studying things that wanted to kill her. Earth was full of them. She found the first clue in the swarm's response patterns. Every time it encountered advanced technology, it adapted within hours. Energy weapons, shields, artificial intelligence, all of it became useless quickly. But it took longer to adapt to simple technology. Chemical reactions, mechanical systems, basic kinetics. The swarm treated those as low-priority threats. It's prioritizing, Samira said suddenly. Look at the adaptation timeline. Energy weapons get countered in an hour. Shields in 2 hours. But kinetic weapons took nearly 6 hours and it still hasn't fully adapted. Why? Lin processed the data. The swarm assumes all spacefaring species follow the same technological development path. Energy weapons come first, kinetics are left behind. It was designed to counter advanced civilizations. So it's a weapon, Samira concluded. Someone built it. But who? They dug deeper into the swarm's code, and it had code, buried beneath the biological components. Ancient programming that had corrupted over time. The original purpose was still visible in fragments. Target advanced technology. Consume and adapt. Spread until the enemy is destroyed. This was an AI weapon from the old war, Lin said quietly. The professor pulled up historical records that were 30,000 years old. Before the assembly, before peace, there were 2 great empires that destroyed each other. The Builders and the Unity. They created weapons designed to end civilizations. The swarm was one of them. Samira felt sick. It's been drifting through space for 30,000 years, corrupted and broken, until it found the assembly. And now it's doing what it was designed to do, destroying advanced civilizations. But it cannot understand humans, Lin observed. Your technology is inconsistent. You use energy weapons and kinetic weapons together. You employ AI but also analog systems. You have not abandoned your primitive tools. The swarm does not know what to prioritize. Samira pulled up the combat footage from Haven 7. She watched Roy and his Marines switching between different weapon types and tactics with no pattern. She saw Dana using thermite charges, technology that was thousands of years old by human standards. She watched humans fighting with blades and fists when their guns ran empty. We're unpredictable because we kept everything, Samira realized. Most species advance and leave old technology behind. Humans never did that. We still use knives alongside laser guidance systems. We still have chemical explosives in the same arsenal as fusion reactors. We're not more advanced, we're messier. Commander Owen Drake arrived in the laboratory. The Earth Fleet commander looked grim. Coalition just received intelligence. The swarm's main force is heading for Sanctuary, the capital system. 40 billion people live there. Timeline is 11 days. Lynn's crystalline structure dimmed. We cannot evacuate 40 billion beings in 11 days. The logistics are impossible. Coalition Ethics Board is debating their options, Owen continued. Some want to surrender. Others want to keep fighting with the same tactics that have failed for 3 months. A few are suggesting we weaponize the asteroid belt around Sanctuary. That could work, Samira said immediately. Kinetic weapons on a massive scale. The swarm won't be able to adapt fast enough if we throw entire asteroids at it. Lynn made a sound like breaking glass. That violates our foundational principles. We do not weaponize natural resources. We do not cause deliberate destruction of celestial bodies. These ethics are what separate us from the old war civilizations that destroyed themselves. Those civilizations are dead, Owen said bluntly. You're about to join them if you don't adapt. Then we are no better than the weapon trying to destroy us, Lynn replied. Samira understood the dilemma. The coalition had built their entire society on certain principles. They had eliminated violence, aggression, and destructive behavior. They had created peace through strict adherence to ethical frameworks. Now those same principles were killing them. Professor, Samira said carefully, what's the point of ethics if everyone dies? If the swarm wipes out the assembly, who remembers that you held to your principles at the end? We would remember, Lynn said simply. That is enough. Patricia Hayes joined them via communication link from the ESS Relentless. Coalition Command just contacted me. They want human input on the Sanctuary defense. Admiral Koss is asking if we have any tactical suggestions that don't violate assembly ethics. Owen laughed bitterly. They want us to save them, but only in ways that make them feel good about it. That's not how war works. It's how their war has to work, Patricia corrected. They're not wrong to have principles. Those principles built something beautiful. A civilization without violence, without cruelty. We can't ask them to abandon everything they are. Then they'll die being beautiful, Owen said. Samira looked at the swarm samples. She thought about the old war, about civilizations so consumed by conflict that they created weapons to destroy themselves. The coalition had learned from that mistake. They had chosen peace. Now that choice was being tested in the worst possible way. There might be another option, Samira said slowly. The swarm adapts to technology, but it's still following its original programming. If we can access that programming, we might be able to, not stop it, but confuse it. Make it think it's already won. Explain, Patricia ordered. The swarm's primary directive is to destroy advanced technology. Once it eliminates a civilization, it goes dormant and waits for the next target. What if we trick it into thinking the assembly is already destroyed? Feed it false data that says there are no more advanced civilizations in this region of space. Lynn's structure brightened. A deception protocol. We would need to access the swarm's command network. That would require getting close to their central coordination node. Suicidally close, Owen added. That's what humans are for, Patricia said quietly. We're good at suicide missions. We've been running them for our entire history. They spent the next 6 hours developing the plan. It was desperate and dangerous. It required everything going perfectly, and it meant someone would have to get inside the swarm's formation and plant a device directly into their command structure. Admiral Koss reviewed the proposal with his command staff. This could work, but the species who attempts it will likely be completely destroyed. We cannot ask anyone to make such a sacrifice. You're not asking, Patricia replied. We're volunteering. Why? Koss demanded. Why would you sacrifice yourselves for us? We treated you as dangerous outsiders. We warned you to stay away. You owe us nothing. Patricia thought about Earth, about humanity's long climb from caves to stars. She thought about every person who died fighting for others. Every soldier who held the line. Every civilian who refused to run. Because it's the right thing to do, she said simply. And because we're from a death world, Admiral. We know what happens when predators win. We've seen what happens when violence goes unchecked. You built something worth protecting. We're going to protect it even if it costs us everything. The coalition fleet began preparing for the Battle of Sanctuary. 47 human ships against 40,000 swarm entities. The odds were worse than impossible. But Roy Sullivan had said it best on Haven 7. Humans learned to survive the impossible every single day. Samira looked at the swarm samples one last time. She had found their weakness. Now someone had to exploit it, and that someone would almost certainly die doing it. The sanctuary system looked peaceful from a distance, with its golden star and 7 inhabited worlds. 40 billion people lived here. Artists, scientists, philosophers, families. They had built cities that looked like dreams made solid, where violence was something only found in historical records. Now they waited for death to arrive from the dark between stars. Roy Sullivan stood in the briefing room of the ESS Relentless, looking at the tactical display. 47 human warships formed a defensive line alongside 2,000 coalition vessels. The numbers looked good until you considered what they faced. The swarm was bringing 40,000 entities. Every simulation ended the same way: total defeat within 3 hours. "We're going to lose," Yuki said flatly, studying the same data. "Even with our tactics, we can't overcome those odds. They'll adapt eventually, and then we're done." "Then we make sure they don't have time to adapt," Roy replied. He pulled up Samira's plan, the deception protocol that could shut down the swarm's coordination network. "We need to get one ship to their command node and plant the device." "That ship won't survive." "Volunteer mission?" Dana asked, already knowing the answer. "Already assigned," Roy said quietly. "I'm taking the Relentless straight into their formation." "You're staying here to command the defense." Dana started to argue, but Roy cut her off. "This isn't heroic. It's math. Someone has to do it, and I'm the ranking officer who's expendable. You're a better tactical commander than me. Patricia needs you for the endgame." The swarm arrived exactly on schedule. Space twisted and 40,000 corrupted vessels emerged from slip space like a plague made visible. They moved with perfect coordination, spreading out to surround the entire system. The swarm didn't waste time with communication or demands. It simply began the process of consumption. Admiral Koss opened fleet-wide communication. "All vessels, this is Coalition Command. Today we fight for everything we built. For peace, for life, for the future. We may not survive, but they will remember we stood together." Patricia's voice followed. "Human forces, you know the drill. Hit them with everything that doesn't make sense. Keep them guessing. Make them adapt so fast their systems burn out. And remember, we're from Earth, we don't know how to quit." The Coalition fleet opened fire first. Energy beams lanced across space, striking swarm vessels with pinpoint accuracy. For about an hour it worked. Then the swarm adapted. Shields began reflecting energy weapons. Countermeasures disrupted targeting systems. Within 90 minutes, the Coalition's technology became useless. 800 Coalition ships died in the first 2 hours. The human ships moved forward, cutting through the defensive formations. Roy's plan was simple and insane. They would fight like pirates, not like a proper military. Each ship operated independently, using different weapons and tactics with no coordination. Some fired kinetic weapons. Others launched missiles with chemical explosives. A few simply rammed swarm vessels, trading hull integrity for enemy kills. The swarm's adaptation protocols couldn't keep up. Every time it analyzed a human attack pattern, the next ship did something completely different. The ESS Relentless emptied its railgun ammunition, then switched to missile salvos, then started using the mining charges that were meant for asteroid work. Roy fired everything, including the maintenance drones, sending them crashing into swarm vessels as improvised kinetic weapons. "This is chaos," one of the Coalition officers transmitted. "There is no coordination, no logical progression of tactics. How are you winning?" "We're not winning," Yuki transmitted back from her command post. "We're just losing slower. Watch and learn." A swarm capital vessel, something the size of a small moon, broke through the defensive line and headed for Sanctuary's inhabited worlds. Dana's ship, the ESS Titan, intercepted it with a maneuver that made Coalition observers gasp. She accelerated to ramming speed, evacuated the entire crew into escape pods, and crashed the Titan directly into the capital vessel's command center. Both vessels exploded. 3,000 swarm entities lost coordination and began drifting. Coalition forces destroyed them in minutes. "That was a 1 billion credit warship," Admiral Koss said in shock. "She just destroyed it to stop one enemy vessel." "That's how we fight," Patricia replied. "We trade pieces until we win. Your species thinks about preservation. Ours thinks about victory." The battle raged for 6 hours. Human casualty rates climbed above 60%. 31 warships were destroyed or crippled beyond repair. 8,000 humans died in the defense of a system that wasn't even theirs. But the swarm's advance slowed. Its adaptation protocols were overwhelmed by the sheer unpredictability of human tactics. Roy guided the Relentless through the chaos toward the center of the swarm formation. He could see it now. The coordination node that Samira identified. It looked like a massive crystalline structure, pulsing with corrupted energy. Getting to it meant flying through the densest concentration of swarm forces in the system. All crew to escape pods, Roy ordered. You've got 2 minutes. Yuki's voice crackled over communication. Roy, if you do this, you're not coming back. I know, he replied simply. But 40 billion people will. That's a good trade. His crew evacuated. Marines who had survived Haven 7. Engineers who kept the ship running. Scientists who studied the enemy. They loaded into pods and launched, trusting coalition ships to pick them up. Within 90 seconds, Roy was alone on the Relentless. He set course for the coordination node and pushed the engines beyond safety limits. The ship shook as swarm weapons tore into it. Hull breaches vented atmosphere. Systems failed one by one, but Roy kept flying, kept pushing forward, kept trading his ship's integrity for distance. Sullivan, this is Patricia. What's your status? About 30 seconds from target, Roy replied. Samira's device is armed. I'll plant it directly in their central matrix. Should cause a cascade failure across the entire network. Roy, Patricia's voice broke slightly. It's been an honor. Same here, Commander. Take care of them, will you? The people we saved. The Coalition, all of it. Show them that Deathworlders can build, not just destroy. The Relentless hit the coordination node like a meteor. Roy had just enough time to activate Samira's device before the ship's fusion reactor lost containment. The explosion vaporized everything within a kilometer. The device began its work, feeding false data into the swarm's network, convincing it that all advanced civilizations in the region were destroyed. The swarm stopped fighting. 40,000 entities suddenly lost purpose. They had been designed to destroy advanced technology, and their corrupted programming now believed the mission was complete. They began drifting, shutting down, entering dormancy. The Coalition fleet and remaining human ships moved in quickly, destroying the dormant swarm entities before they could reactivate. It took another 3 hours to clear the system, but the battle was over. Yuki coordinated the cleanup from her temporary command post. She watched the casualty reports come in and felt the weight of every number. 8,000 humans dead, 31 ships destroyed, for people they had never met, to save worlds they had never seen. Patricia arrived at Sanctuary's orbital station a day later. The Coalition's leadership waited to meet her, beings who had built paradise and watched it nearly burn. Admiral Koss approached with something humans recognized as grief. We counted your losses, Koss said quietly. 8,000 of your people died defending us. Your species numbered only 12 million before this war. You sacrificed a significant fraction of your population for strangers. We did what was necessary, Patricia replied. Why? Reith asked, his feathers showing colors that meant mourning. We called you dangerous. We wanted you to stay away. We treated you as monsters. Why did you save us? Patricia thought about Roy's last transmission. She thought about Dana ramming her ship into the enemy. She thought about 8,000 humans who volunteered to fight and die for people they never met. Because, she said slowly, that's what people do. Real people. They protect those who can't protect themselves. They fight when fighting is needed. They sacrifice when sacrifice is required. You built a civilization without violence, and that's beautiful. But someone has to stand between beauty and the dark. On Earth, we learned to be that someone. She looked out at Sanctuary's worlds, where 40 billion people would wake up tomorrow and continue their peaceful lives because 8,000 humans stood in the way of death. You call us Deathworlders like it's a curse, Patricia continued. Maybe it is. But it also means we know the value of life. Because on our world, life was never guaranteed. Every day was a fight to survive. So when we see life threatened, we fight for it, even if it's not our own. The Coalition leadership stood in silence, processing humanity's gift and its cost. They had learned something about the galaxy, that peace required protectors, and sometimes those protectors came from the most unexpected places. 6 months after the Battle of Sanctuary, Patricia Hayes returned to Earth for the first time since the war began. She walked through cities that looked different now. Not in architecture or layout, but in attitude. Humanity had proven itself to the galaxy, and the galaxy was responding in ways nobody expected. The recognition came swiftly. The Galactic Assembly formally acknowledged Earth as a full member species. The quarantine designation was removed. Human ships could travel freely through assembly space. More importantly, humans were no longer seen as dangerous outsiders. They were defenders, protectors, the people who stood when others couldn't. But the cost was heavy. 8,000 names were carved into the memorial wall at United Nations headquarters. Patricia attended the dedication ceremony and listened as families spoke about their lost children, parents, siblings. Each one had volunteered. Each one had known the risks. That didn't make the grief any lighter. Samira Okoye spent most of her time traveling between coalition worlds, hunting down the last fragments of the swarm. The deception protocol had worked, but some entities survived in remote regions of space. She led joint human coalition teams to find and eliminate every remaining trace. It was dangerous work that would take years to complete. She stood on the bridge of a coalition science vessel, working alongside Professor Lin and a dozen other alien researchers. They had developed new detection methods, combining human intuition with alien technology. The relationship was changing both sides. Coalition scientists were learning to think more aggressively, to consider unconventional approaches. Human researchers were absorbing coalition knowledge at incredible speed. Medicine, energy systems, materials science. Your species learned so quickly, Lin observed, watching Samira interface with technology that humans had never seen before the war. Most species required decades to understand our systems. You mastered them in months. We're good at adapting, Samira replied. Had to be. Earth didn't give us any choice. The military integration was happening faster than anyone predicted. Yuki Tanaka commanded the first joint human coalition warship, the Unity. The crew was mixed, humans working alongside Tilani, Dren, and half a dozen other species. The culture clash was constant and exhausting. Coalition officers struggled with human aggression and risk-taking. Human soldiers found coalition procedures slow and overly cautious, but they learned from each other. Yuki taught coalition forces about improvisation, about making decisions in chaos, about fighting when the odds were impossible. Coalition veterans taught humans about patience, about considering long-term consequences, about building systems that lasted. The Unity became a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. Dana Cross supervised the construction of joint defense installations throughout coalition space. Humans brought expertise in fortification and aggressive defense. Coalition engineers contributed their superior technology in manufacturing. The resulting structures were unlike anything either side had built alone. Combining human tactical brutality with alien sophistication, she stood on an asteroid station overlooking one of the new installations and felt satisfied with the work. Human weapons platforms integrated with coalition shield generators, kinetic railguns backed by energy weapons, analog systems running parallel to AI networks. It was messy and complicated, but that was the point. The swarm had taught them that predictability was death. Patricia's new role as Galactic Defense Coordinator meant dealing with politics more than military matters. The coalition's leadership was struggling to reconcile their peaceful philosophy with the brutal reality they had faced. Some wanted to return to pure pacifism, arguing that military strength would corrupt their civilization. Others insisted that preparing for threats was necessary for survival. The debates filled endless council meetings. Patricia listened to species who had lived in peace for thousands of years, arguing about whether to maintain standing armies. She contributed when asked, but mostly stayed quiet. This was their decision to make, their culture to shape. Humans could advise but not dictate. What do your people believe? Admiral Koss asked her during one particularly contentious session. You come from a world of violence. Do you think military strength is necessary? Patricia chose her words carefully. On Earth, we have a saying, walk softly and carry a big stick. It means you pursue peace but maintain the ability to defend yourself. The stick doesn't make you violent. It makes you safe. What you do with that safety is up to you. The coalition slowly adopted a new philosophy. They would maintain defensive capabilities but focus their culture on peace. Military service became an option for those who wanted it, not a mandatory duty. Humans helped train the coalition's voluntary defense forces, teaching them tactics and strategies that didn't come naturally to peaceful species. But the changes went both ways. Earth received its first wave of coalition immigrants, beings who wanted to understand the Deathworlders who saved them. They came carefully in small numbers, settling in specially built communities where Earth's harsh conditions were carefully managed. Reith was among the first. The Talani ambassador established a diplomatic compound in Geneva and began the difficult work of helping two very different philosophies understand each other. He wrote extensively about his experiences, sharing them across coalition networks. Humans are not monsters, Reith wrote in one widely read essay. They are survivors who learned compassion despite living in hell. They understand violence because they were forced to master it, but they also understand sacrifice, loyalty, and the value of protecting others. They are dangerous, yes, but they are dangerous in defense of life, not in opposition to it. Patricia read the essay on her tablet while sitting in her apartment overlooking Lake Geneva. Through her window, she could see Talani and humans walking together in the diplomatic quarter. The aliens moved carefully in Earth's gravity, and the humans adjusted their pace to accommodate. It was a small thing, but it represented something larger. The military academies were evolving. Human and coalition officers trained together, learning each other's strengths and weaknesses. Coalition students learned about human history, the wars, the conflicts, the struggles. Many found it disturbing but necessary. Human cadets studied coalition philosophy, learning about civilizations that had achieved peace without destroying themselves. One evening, Patricia received a message from Dana. "You should see this," it said, with a video attachment. Patricia played the video and watched coalition soldiers running training exercises. But they weren't using traditional coalition tactics. They were using human methods, aggressive maneuvers, unconventional thinking, accepting calculated risks. At the same time, human Marines were practicing coalition defensive formations, learning patience and systematic approaches. They're becoming something new. Dana's message continued. Not human, not coalition. Something that takes the best from both. 6 months wasn't enough time to heal all wounds or solve all problems. Families still mourned their dead. Species still struggled to understand each other. The galaxy was still dangerous with unexplored regions hiding unknown threats. But something fundamental had shifted. The coalition learned that peace required strength. Humans learned that strength didn't require brutality. Both sides discovered that survival meant cooperation, and cooperation meant accepting difficult truths about themselves and others. Patricia attended a memorial service on Sanctuary, where coalition citizens had built a monument to the 8,000 humans who died defending their worlds. The names were carved in both human languages and coalition script. Thousands of aliens attended, many bringing flowers or gifts or simple messages of gratitude. A young Talani child approached Patricia with her parents. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old by human standards. She held out a small wooden carving, a human figure standing with a Talani, both looking up at stars. "Thank you for saving us," the child said in careful, practiced English. "My teacher says your people are heroes." Patricia knelt down, which brought her to the child's eye level even with the height difference. "Your people would have found a way to survive. You're strong too, just in different ways. We just helped speed things up. Will you teach us?" the child asked. "How to be brave like you?" Patricia smiled. "We can teach each other. You show us how to build peace and we'll show you how to protect it. Deal?" The child's feathers shifted to colors that meant happiness and agreement. Her parents made gestures of respect to Patricia before leading their daughter away. Admiral Cost joined Patricia at the memorial. 40 billion people live in this system because of your species, yet you seem troubled." "I'm thinking about the future," Patricia admitted. "We found the swarm, who knows what else is out there? The galaxy is huge and we've barely explored any of it." "That is precisely why we need partnerships like ours," Cost replied. "Coalition species bring knowledge, technology, and wisdom accumulated over thousands of years. Humans bring adaptability, courage, and willingness to face the impossible. Together, we are stronger than either of us alone." Patricia looked at Sanctuary's sky, where human and coalition ships patrolled together. She thought about joint research stations where humans and aliens worked to understand the universe. She considered the military academies training defenders from a dozen species. The diplomatic corps teaching mutual respect, the cultural exchanges bringing different worlds together. "You know what the biggest change is?" Patricia said. 6 months ago, you called us dangerous and wanted us to stay away. Now you're asking us to stay and help build something new. We were afraid of you, Koss admitted. We still are sometimes. Your capacity for violence is terrifying, but we learned something important. You are equally capable of compassion. You fight like demons, but you fight to protect. That makes all the difference. Somewhere above them, in the space between worlds, human and coalition crews worked together to hunt down the last swarm fragments. Somewhere on Earth, alien students studied human resilience and adaptability. Somewhere in coalition space, human officers taught defensive tactics while learning patience from their alien counterparts. Patricia Hayes, former Earth Defense Commander and current Galactic Defense Coordinator, stood at the memorial to 8,000 heroes and thought about the future. It would be complicated. It would be difficult. There would be more threats, more conflicts, more sacrifices required. But for the first time since humanity reached the stars, they wouldn't face those threats alone. The Deathworlders had proven themselves worthy of partnership, and the galaxy's peaceful civilizations had learned that peace was worth fighting for. The stars shook when aliens sent their distress call, but the response, the arrival of warriors from a world that had tried to kill them every day of their evolution, had shaken the stars even more. Now those warriors stood guard while billions of beings lived in peace, and both sides were learning what they could accomplish together. Patricia placed her hand on the memorial wall, feeling the carved names beneath her fingers. 8,000 people who never returned home. She made them a silent promise. Their sacrifice would not be forgotten, and the peace they died protecting would be worth the cost.